Reckless driving in Indiana. I'm attorney Matt Crows with the Marc Lopez law firm, and one of the most constant calls we get are people that are charged with reckless driving here in Indiana. Now, what exactly is reckless driving? Well, reckless driving is driving a vehicle or operating a vehicle recklessly, and it could be at a speed unreasonably too fast or unreasonably too slow for the traffic conditions that are currently out there right now, and you either have to endanger the safety or property of another person, or you have to obstruct the flow of traffic. In other words, just speeding necessarily isn't enough for reckless driving. There needs to be some other component of endangering either property of someone else, the safety of someone else, obstructing the flow of traffic. That doesn't mean speed alone is going to preclude you from being charged with reckless driving. In fact, you can be, but it is very, very rare here that just speeding is going to get you enough to reckless driving. And the reason for that is nowhere in the code is there an actual number. So, for example, 26 miles an hour over the speed limit is generally what a lot of people believe to be reckless driving. That's kind of the bench bar number, if you will. But you could be going 6 miles an hour over, weaving in and out of traffic, and still get charged with reckless driving, while person B is driving 20 miles an hour over the speed limit on dry conditions with no traffic, and he just gets a traffic citation. Well, Matt, that's not fair. How come I, who's driving just a little bit over the speed limit, can get reckless driving, but someone else can't? It's a great question, but again, the code specifically states you have to either be endangering yourself, you have to be putting the public safety or someone else's property at risk, or you have to be obstructing the flow of traffic. So again, you could be driving 40 miles an hour in the left lane of a highway, and everybody trying to get around you. That could still technically be reckless driving here in the state of Indiana. Now, reckless driving is an actual criminal offense. Starts out as a C misdemeanor at its bare bones, but if you injure somebody, it then can jump up to an A misdemeanor, punishable by up to a year in jail and a $5,000 fine. Things can get a little bit wackier if there's a school bus involved. So if you're passing a school bus that has its stop sign arm out and you go by it, it automatically starts at an A misdemeanor. And then if you injure somebody in that exact situation, it's actually a level 6 felony, 2.5 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. So not only is there a risk of potential jail time when it comes to reckless driving, but it's also going to have tremendous ramifications on your driver's license. Reckless driving is a major offense to the BMV, along with DUIs, along with leaving the scene of an accident. All of these qualify as what are called major offenses to the BMV. Minor ones include speeding, running a red light, that kind of stuff. But major offenses can carry a pretty heavy bill when it comes to your driver's license. For example, if you were to pick up 3 major offenses in a 10-year period, BMV is going to come in, take your license. Now, they're not obviously going to come to your house and knock on your door. They're just going to click a couple buttons and say that you're a habitual traffic violator. 10-year license suspension right there. Imagine not being able to drive for 10 years because of a couple trumped up speeding tickets because of a couple reckless driving offenses here. So reckless driving, not only being a criminal act, is going to have some long-term potentially effects on your driver's license. And it's something that needs to be taken very seriously. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're charged with reckless driving, you need to hire an experienced attorney to help you and best put you on the path for your future to make sure not only are you trying to avoid the potential pitfalls of a criminal case, but also avoid that long-term ramification potentially on your driver's license. Because if you can't drive, you can't do a lot of things you want to do in life. So if you or anyone you know is charged with reckless driving, give us a call at the Marc Lopez Law Firm, 317-632-3642. And remember, always plead the fifth.